Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to the channel. Earlier today, there was a video released by TMZ of UFC President Dana White slapping his wife in a club in Mexico on New Year's Eve. And this is a video we'll take a look at in a second. I also have some clips of Dana White. He did an interview talking about the video, him being caught on video slapping his wife. But this was something that I debated about making a video about because usually I tend to avoid the drama topics. You know, there is channels that cover MMA from like a soap opera point of view, and I'm not one of those. But then I started thinking about it, and you know, the UFC has a massive deal with ESPN. ESPN is owned by Disney. And when you look at any other professional sports league, whether it be the NFL, MLB, NBA, NHL, if you had a president or a commissioner who was caught on camera in a domestic dispute, they would probably immediately be fired or step down after the video surfaced. So I wanted to make a video discussing the possibility of Dana White essentially losing his job as UFC president over this video. And I do believe, regardless of if that happens or not, I do believe this could be the end of one of Dana White's business ventures, which we'll talk about later in the video as well. But this is one of those things where, you know, a lot of people are just going to react to the video and say, you know what, Dana shouldn't have done this. There's no excuse for this. And basically, Dana needs to apologize, and that's the end of it. And I do believe the MMA media as a whole, while they're going to cover this, they're not, you know, you do think Brett Okamoto is going to ask Dana White any tough questions about him slapping his wife in a club? You think Brett Okamoto is going to be covering Dana White from a tough perspective? So we're going to look at it from an unbiased perspective, and I'm going to give you my reaction to the video, which is going to be similar to all the other reactions you've probably seen, but I have a little bit different of an opinion, a little bit slightly varied opinion on the Dana White and his wife incidents. But first, we will take a look at the video. This is the video released by TMZ. I'll release a link to the interview and video that TMZ released regarding Dana White. I'll put it down in the description. But here is the video of Dana White and his wife in the club. So there you have it. Dana White's wife slaps him first with a nasty right hand. I'm not trying to break this down from a technical standpoint of striking, but slaps him with a right hand. He proceeds to slap her back twice and then kind of push her away, and people break it up. So first off, I want to say, before I get into anything, of course I don't condone this. You're not supposed to hit your wife. You're not supposed to hit a woman. Dana White, it's a terrible look for him, for sure. It's a terrible look, and we're going to look at the way he reacted in an interview with TMZ, which I think is better for this whole thing. Dana White's kind of doing a good job with damage control regarding a domestic dispute. But what I will say is, this is one of those things where I'm not going to clutch my pearls over it, okay? I'm not going to say this is the most abhorrent thing I've ever seen. This is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. Dana White, and I love shitting on Dana White. Don't get me wrong, okay? I love shitting on him. He should not have done this. He should not have hit his wife by any means whatsoever. He should not be hitting women by any means whatsoever. A grown man should not be hitting a woman. But what I will say, and this has been my opinion throughout history with things like this, where you have public figures in incidents like this. There was an incident with Ray Rice, which was a lot different back in the day with the Baltimore Ravens. But if his wife is willing to forgive him, that's all I need to know. That's all. It's not my job to get involved in their personal life. So according to Dana White, they're still on vacation. According to Dana White, he's just worried about his kids. He showed, we're going to look at a clip from the interview here in a minute. But essentially, Dana White got hit. He made a terrible decision and decided to start smacking her back. I think what makes it worse is the fact that he kind of smacked her twice, where she only smacked him once. But nonetheless, he shouldn't be hitting a woman. But I'm not going to sit here and cry and act like he brutally KO'd her. I'm not going to sit here and act like, he knocked her down and then stomped on her head or soccer kicked her pride style. It was a terrible decision. He said, there was alcohol involved, which still is no excuse, which he actually said in the clips I'm going to show you. But it's not a good decision. But again, if his wife is willing to forgive him, then who am I to say, Dana White needs to be fired, Dana White needs this or that. In regards to ESPN potentially trying to get Dana White fired, or Disney trying to get Dana White fired because they own ESPN, I do not think that's going to happen. I think most of you can kind of agree with me on that. Dana White is so powerful and such a good promoter. He can get away with a lot of stuff. That's just the truth of it. That's just the reality of it. If it was somebody else, if this was a low-level MMA fighter who's in the UFC, they're getting fired. They're getting cut from the organization immediately, and Dana White is shitting on it. But because Dana White is who he is, because he has the money he has, because he is as influential over the sport as he is, I don't think that it's even possible for him to be removed from, being the president of the UFC. Now, before I get into some more opinions on this, I want to show you, I kind of clipped this out. This was probably a 3 or 4 minute interview with Dana White. I pulled out the most pertinent clips. They asked Dana White about the incident, and I'm going to show you guys that, and then I'm going to come back and react to it.
Me say for years, there's never, ever an excuse for a guy to put his hands on a woman. And now here I am on TMZ talking about it. But there was definitely a lot of alcohol involved, but that's no excuse. I literally am making no excuses for this thing at all. It's never happened before. It's the first time.
So there you go. Dana White talking about it. He says there is no excuse to hit a woman. This has never happened before. And he says basically, I have no excuses. And I know he did talk about the alcohol, but what you don't see in that clip, and Dana White and TMZ are kind of buddy-buddy. TMZ kind of gave him a layup, and they were like, you look like you might have been intoxicated in this. Was there a lot of alcohol involved? And he does mention it, but Dana White did not bring that up on his own. So one thing, again, I love shitting on Dana White as much as the next guy. But one thing I do want to say is that he's handling it well in terms of taking responsibility for it. I feel like so many things in the world, if you just come out and say, look, I accept full responsibility. I did this. I shouldn't have done it. It was a terrible decision. I believe a lot of people are forgiving. And I think that is the way you should act. You shouldn't sit there and lie and try to cover it up. Or if he would have came out and said, look, well, she hit me first. That would have been a terrible look. That would have been a terrible look if he said, you know what, she hit me first, so I had to hit her back. I had to give her a good one. That would have been a terrible reaction by Dana. But I will give Dana White credit here. He said, look, it was a mistake. There's no excuse for it. I should have never done it. And that's the best reasoning that he can give. There's nothing else that he can say that can make it any better. It's done. It's out there on video. But one thing I did want to mention in regards to this, and I tweeted this out as soon as basically, within 30 minutes of the video being released. The Power Slap League jokes regarding Dana White are never going to end now. At this point, there is never going to be a time where Dana White is not made fun of, and the memes are going to be unbelievable in regards to him slapping his wife. And the Power Slap League, for those of you who don't know, it is about competitive men slapping each other around. I don't know. I don't follow it really. But Dana White has put his backing behind it. They're advertising it constantly during UFC events, on the UFC Instagram. And one thing I want to say is I don't believe this Power Slap League can be successful without the backing of the UFC and Dana White. I think that is pertinent to its success. And I don't know if some type of league, some type of business is going to be able to continue to run with the guy who's mainly backing them and running the slap league is now caught on camera slapping his wife in a club. So I think it's a terrible look for them. I think the jokes are going to be endless. And I'm wondering, and I don't think Power Slap League is going to be super successful anyway. I think it's going to be one of those things that maybe hangs around for a year or two and then eventually just dissipates into nothing. But Dana White getting caught slapping his wife, meanwhile he's trying to, launch a league of men slapping each other around, is really not a good look for Dana White. It's a hell of a way to start 2023, and it really could be the end of Power Slap League before it even starts. But just to sum all this up, guys, look, Dana White should not have hit his wife. It's a terrible look for Dana White. I don't believe he's going to be removed as the UFC president. I think maybe he disappears for the first couple events in January. I don't think any of the MMA media is going to ask him any tough questions. They're just not going to do it. You think Brett Okamoto is going to ask him a tough question? And anybody that would ask him a tough question has probably already been barred from attending UFC events. But I think he made a terrible mistake. I think at least he's owned up to it. We can respect that. And I think, basically he's going to face no consequences. He's super rich. He's super powerful. He's super influential in the sport. And that's just the reality of the situation. He's not really going to face any consequences. And again, for me personally, even though I don't think it's right, if his wife and his kids are willing to forgive him and accept his apology, then who am I to sit here and say, Dana White needs to be thrown in jail or Dana White needs to lose his job. I'm not going to sit here and do that. If his wife's willing to forgive him, if his kids are willing to forgive him, then that's the end of the story. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Do you think this could genuinely affect him as UFC president? What do you think of Power Slap League in regards to now Dana slapping his wife? It's a horrible look for the Slap League. Will it end up dissolving by some sort? Will this help ruin the sport or before it even starts, really? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, and thank you so much for watching.